Okay, I'm doing this with 5 chicken breasts. Just reduce the portion sizes if you're doing it for less, or do the same thing and freeze it. So we've got chicken, peppers, fresh coriander. Don't get too concerned if you can't get fresh coriander. You can substitute it for powdered coriander. Same with the ginger, lemon, onions, garlic, finger chilies, vegetable stock cube, the coconut milk, tomatoes, salt, pepper, rice. Also, I've got these things for you. They're kind of just staples: curry powder, chili, cumin, coriander. Now I'm doing this, and I'm going to make a kind of paste with it. If you haven't got a mixer, don't worry about it, just cut everything small. Okay, chopping an onion, nice easy way of doing this. Cut the ends off. Just like cut down one side of it. Take the top layer off. Then cut it in half. Rest on a flat base. And then just hold the ends and rotate it. Get pretty finely chopped stuff. If you're going to use a mixer for this, then you don't have to do it too small. But if you don't, then you want to cut them as small as you can. Same thing with the chilies. Obviously, the more chilies you use, the hotter it's going to be. I'm going to use maybe 4 in this one, so you can be the gauge of how hot it is when you taste it. Cut the heads off. Okay, so this is a ginger root that I'm going to use. Now, between this and the coriander, if you can use fresh stuff, it gives it that kind of real fresh taste, frankly. But if you can't, just use the ground stuff, right? You don't have to be too delicate with this. Just cut the outside off. So you've got just the yellow stuff in the middle, about that size. Again, if you haven't got a mixer, then do this as small as you possibly can. But because I'm going to put it through this thing, I can be quite rough with this. Okay, garlic is essential. Get a clove. Take the top piece off. Rip out a couple of bulbs. We'll use about half of it. And when you prepare garlic, I'll just show you one bulb. Cut the top bit off and peel it backwards, and the bottom bit back, and peel it out. Can you see how the skin comes off? There you go, look at that. Right, and then again, roughly cut it. I'm going to use about 4 cloves in this. Okay, coriander. This stuff is dirt cheap, by the way. I find if you get it from Tesco's or Sainsbury's or somewhere, it's expensive, funnily enough. But if you go to Zeb's, it's a long trip from Portsmouth, but your local equivalent is very cheap. So for this bit, we use the stalks, not the leaves. And you can be as generous as you like with this stuff. Again, just roughly cut it. And as you cut it, you'll be able to get the instant bang of the freshness off it. It really kind of animates it. Anyway. Okay, so having done that, you'll end up with something looking a bit like this. And this is what you're going to run through that. Lastly, you stick in your spices. Now, because we've got coriander in there already, you don't need that. And the proportions, you don't have to be too scientific, and you can substitute all these things if you haven't got them. But cumin, give it a bit of a bang, just a little bit of chili, and curry powder, yeah, I think so. And that you don't have to drown it in it. That's probably about enough, okay? Okay, it's now time to put the hand blender on it. Just to repeat myself the 50th time. Just cut it much smaller if you haven't got a blender. This gets a bit messy at first, so I use a cloth over the top of it. Okay, so you don't have to liquidize it completely, all right? You're not supposed to get you're supposed to get a kind of a rough paste. It doesn't have to be that smooth. Oh yeah, tip from the top, tidy up as you go along. It makes it so much easier at the end. Okay, so now you've made the paste, you want to prepare a few more vegetables before you start frying down the paste. So back to your onions. This is a different way of cutting it this time. So this you're going to put in after you started to gently fry the paste off. So again, cut the ends off. Let's take the outer layer. This time, cut it in half, but top to bottom rather than side to side. It's easy to cut, and then you cut it into slices like that. You see that? So that when it comes apart, you get these kind of slivers. Anyway, so you started with 3 onions, 2 go in a paste, 1 goes like this. Peppers this time. So you kind of circle around the top. And what you're trying to do is leave as much of the pepper as you can and take the core out of it, like that. So you're left with something like this. Scrape out the seeds and this fleshy part from the middle. Cut it in half and just quite roughly do some slices. Now I'm using 3 peppers here, but you know, whatever you fancy basically. Again, not essential. You don't have to have that at all if you don't, or you can substitute it with something. Okay, big pan. Don't drown the bottom in oil, but get a fairly big slug of it. I'm using a big pan, obviously. Use a smaller one if you're doing smaller portions. So now we've got your paste to be and your things to fry up afterwards. Now this bit, you're not trying to flash fry it, okay? Don't stick it on the highest heat possible. What you want to do is you try to make this stuff sweat. And the way you know it's going to start working is when it starts to change colour. And you'll be able to notice that. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. Now I've stuck it on super high to start with, just so I can heat up the oil in the pan. But once it gets fairly warm, just stick it down a little bit, and in it goes. Right, it's quite hard to tell. I could recognise that. You can see how it's changing colour slightly. Also, you'll feel it's getting much softer. Right, that's been going for a couple of minutes. I'm sticking this stuff, and again, this isn't flash fry, so you're not making a stir fry here. I'm just going to get this a bit softer. So the paste gives it its flavour, obviously, and this stuff gives it its texture. Just leave that again, just leave it for a few minutes. When it starts to get a bit soft, then you know you're in business. Okay, so if you want to make it more tomatoey, use more tomatoes. If you want to make it more coconut milky, use more coconut milk. It's stating the obvious, but just in case. Right, the other thing you've got to stick in, after that's gone in, is the seasoning, alright? Keep tasting it as you go along, just to see if you like it or not. It's been going for about 4 minutes now, and can you see the colour change? And remember those little segments of onions that we did? They've all separated now. That's a good sign. And they've got softer and they're much more supple. So when you get to that stage, lob this stuff in. Give it a good old mix. And the longer you can keep that bubbling away for, the more the flavours mix and fuse and homogenise. So that's quite a good thing. Alright, now that's pretty much the sauce done. Now the good thing about this is, don't forget the seasoning. Quite a lot of salt. A decent slug of pepper. Now, pepper's in, right? Is you can do that in the morning, just leave it, and then come back later and stick the meat in. But that effectively is pretty much it. In fact, if you get really desperate, you can just shove cooked meat in there already. It's not as nice, it's a long way away from it, but if you want to, that's what you can do. Right, so I actually crumbled the stock cube in there. I'm just about to see it on the top there. Mix it all about, and then just leave. Just let it go. Stick a lid on it. Okay, so while that's simmering away, I'll show you how to do the chicken. So you probably want the vegetable paste thing, the kind of stewy thing, to go for about 10-15 minutes, just reducing itself a bit. So while that's going on, I'll prepare the chicken for you. And the key here, try and get yourself a sharp knife. I know we don't have any, but you might. You may still have them. Try and get the chicken pieces around about that size. No bigger, because what you want is to have, well, bite-sized pieces effectively. You don't want to have, you know, something that big is going to take 2 or 3 goes at, right? So cut it fairly small. And then line it up, because we're not going to put it straight in to the liquid. We're going to flash fry it first. And that does 2 things. One, it sears it a bit, so it gives it better texture. And the other thing is it gets quite a lot of the fat out of it, as you'll see when we actually do it. And just because I'm your dad, right, okay. 2 things. First is, after you've chopped the chilies, make sure you don't inadvertently stick your hands down your pants. All right, it's a mistake you will only ever make once. Okay, that's in all seriousness. The second thing is that it's really easy to give yourself food poisoning with raw chicken. All right, so everything it touches, you've got to make sure that you wash thoroughly afterwards, and that you don't do anything, you know, really catastrophically stupid, like put your hands in your mouth. Okay. Alright, so that's about the sizes you're after. Okay, so there you go. The chopping board. Get lots of washing up liquid on it, smear it all around, then rinse it. It goes to kind of a slimy state, and you see it gets clean. Very important, make sure it's absolutely clean. Okay, right, on a pretty high heat now this time. You can try and flash fry this stuff. Not too much oil, and you'll see why in a moment, because when I stick this stuff in, I'm going to do this in 2 goes as well, because I think there's just too much of it. You'll see there's a load of residue, there's a load of liquid that comes off it that you want to drain away. Okay, so here we go. Use separate implements for the raw meat as you are for the vegetable stuff. Okay, don't contaminate the 2, again for food safety reasons. Right, let's just stick a bit. Oh god, I've got a lot in. Right, it's all or nothing in that case. Here we go. Right, we might get away with it. Pretty obvious the bit that started cooking, the bit that isn't, as I'll show you in a moment. So that's been for about 30-40 seconds already. Can you see all that liquid? That's tilted. See that liquid that's coming off it down there? That's what you're trying to get rid of. Okay, and how do you know that what's been cooked or what's touched on or not? Is that when you turn it over, immediately you see the other bits have gone white. Now, I'm going to use 2 instruments for this. You should use 2 instruments because doing it with one is just too difficult. So it's all white all over. Alright, now, I can't show this to you, but what you need to do is try and get rid of some of that. Okay, so what I do is I just tip it into the sink, I get it over and I spoon it out into it. So I've just done that now, you can see, look, how much less there is of it. Probably here that it's actually frying in far more intensity because it's got these boiled. So make sure everything's white. Get a little bit of a crisp on it, maybe, if you like. But actually, that's probably good enough as it is. Alright. So the idea is not to cook it completely in there. It's just to get the excess off. Right, I'm now going to tip that into that, but obviously I can't do that with one hand, so I can... Okay, so it's in. Just mix it around. Just get it under cover, basically. And this next bit, you keep the lid off for, which is you want to reduce this, just evaporate, you know, quite a lot of liquid off of it. Another thing you can do at this point, if you choose, is put a bit of sugar in it. You don't need a lot, just a little bit, just peps up something. Yeah, critically, after you put the chicken in, let it simmer for at least 15 minutes. You know how when it's cooked, because it'll be white all the way through and no liquid will run out. You run out of it when you cut it. Okay, that's pretty much done now. So, last knockings is you just roughly get some of this stuff, coriander leaves, not many, and when it's done, just sprinkle them on top. Now, it's not ready yet because I've got to go out, but you get the idea. And at the very end, just before you serve it, cut a lemon in half, squeeze as much as you can over the top of it, makes it very fresh and zesty. Perfect. Perfect!